point, I felt the third ingredient was ready to toss into the mix. My faith and the synchronicity of events around me were ready for my initiative, so I made contact with the adoption agency and inquired for the whereabouts of this woman. The first trial of going to the agency was ineffective. They told me that she hadn't inquired for my whereabouts, and New York State has the most stringent laws for adoptees to search for their families. So I had to retreat and go back to my three ingredients for success. I had to get really firm and even go deeper into my faith, which is what I did for 3 years. I did, however, on that first contact receive a letter with a lot more information about my family than I had previously had. In fact, I learned that my mother was not tall and blonde and beautiful. She was 100% Sicilian. I learned where I got my passion and fire from. Moving along, the year was 1996. I felt ready. I felt ready to go back to that agency and find out once again. So I used my birthday as a poignant date. I knew that she would be thinking about me. My birthday was coming. It was about to become my Saturn return, an epic time in everyone's life when you go through trials and tribulations and big changes. I knew this woman must have been thinking about me. I called up that agency in Manhattan and I said, "I'm ready. Has my mother looked for me?" They said, "We'll let you know." The call came back. "You're not going to believe this. Your files are completely missing. They're just gone. This hasn't happened ever to us. This was a reputable adoption agency in downtown Manhattan." They said, "We'll get back to you." They got back to me a few days later, and they said, "You're not going to believe this. Your mother, only 2 weeks before you, came trusting into this agency looking for you." Go figure, within 2 weeks' time, we both went looking for each other after a lifetime of wondering where she was. Now, call it coincidence, but I call it using my recipe for success. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to meet the woman that birthed me, that looked like me, that gave me life. Use visualization. I never stopped imagining for a moment what that first embrace would be like, what our conversation would entail upon meeting. And thirdly, have faith and follow synchronicity in your life. I never stopped having faith. And I looked for all the synchronistic things that surrounded me, all the multiple friends that I met who were equally on that path searching and were adopted. I read stories of other adoptees. And of course, my beloved of 7 years, that was an incredible synchronicity. There it was, my recipe for success. Landed me meeting my biological mother. Now you're probably wondering what that first encounter was like with her. Well, let me tell you. It was an incredible summer day in June. We met in the Rose Garden at Central Park. The smell of roses was everywhere in the air. There were beautiful sculptures spurting water and making incredible joyous sounds. The backdrop, where I initially walked up to her, sitting on the bench, gazing upon this woman, my mother, this woman I'd always wanted to meet. There she was. And as I approached and got closer, the tears began to well in my eyes, as did they in hers. And eventually, we embraced to tell each other many more stories about all the years that we had been separated. Now my only challenge is how to find enough love to share with two incredible mothers, the one that raised me and the one that couldn't because she was only 17 in the 60s and her parents wouldn't allow for it. Toastmasters and honored guests, don't get to your deathbed and still have something you want to do. Find your own recipe for success, or use mine to find what you want, visualize it, and have faith following your synchronicity, because dreaming and wanting is what we're here for. Thank you.